That I should be grateful a wealthy man wanted me. That it was a blessing to be chosen by someone like Tariq Alhamai, a 48-year-old construction magnate with 2 dead wives and a reputation that made grown women shiver. I was 15. But none of that mattered, not the fear, not the fact that his last wife died of kidney failure at 22. None of it mattered when my parents decided I was his next bride. What happened next shocked everyone and changed our family forever. See, in my family, a girl became eligible the moment her body gave her away. Didn't matter if she was 12, 13, or barely a teenager, first blood meant first contract. We weren't living overseas either. We were right here. In Minnesota. A suburb with Target runs and PTO meetings. But inside our house? It was another century. I didn't start bleeding until I was nearly 15, and I fought to keep it that way. When I was 10, I saw what happened to my cousin Miriam. 3 days after her first period, she was betrothed to a man who had grandkids her age. That night, I scraped food off my plate and flushed it when no one was watching. I learned how to pinch my stomach in until it bruised, just so they'd think I was still a child. I got called names, ghost girl, skeleton doll, but I didn't care. Hunger was better than marriage. Still, they kept preparing me. Every Saturday morning at 2 a.m., I served breakfast to the older men of the family. In silence. With my eyes on the floor. One wrong glance and I got whipped. My mother made me hold cast iron pots straight off the burner, saying it would toughen me up for kitchen life. And every night she smeared whitening cream over my face and said, "You'll thank me when he sees you." And I played the part. Smiled. Practiced my wedding phrases. "I hope to have many children," I'd chirp. Even though inside, I was rotting. Then, one day at school, I accidentally wore a short-sleeved t-shirt. My math teacher, Ms. Knox, saw my arms and immediately pulled me aside. "You're not eating," she said. I laughed. She didn't. She filed a concern. Scheduled a mandatory wellness check. She left the room briefly and forgot to lock her desk drawer. Inside? Pamphlets. Booklets. Brightly colored sheets that screamed things like, "Your rights as a minor," and "When culture crosses the line." I stole the smallest one and hid it in my sock. That night, in the bathroom with the shower running, I read every word. Then I read it again. And again. For the first time, I saw it in black and white. Marriage under 18 is illegal, no exceptions. Not culture. Not religion. Not parental consent. Everything I thought was normal, wasn't. So I started a fake housewife club in my uncle's shed. 6 of my younger cousins, all of them still prepubescent, joined. We whispered phrases that could trigger mandatory reports. We memorized shelter numbers. Practiced saying, "I'm 13, they're making me get married. Please help." And then, my body betrayed me. It happened during meal prep. The blood soaked straight through my white dress. My mother shrieked in delight, like she just won the lottery. That night, they told me I was going to marry Tariq. 2 wives buried before 23. 8 children older than me. They were celebrating. I was planning my escape. And 2 nights later, CPS knocked on our door. But that wasn't the end. That was just the beginning. When the CPS agents showed up, they asked calm, polite questions. They wanted to speak with all the girls under 18. Said there'd been a report of forced marriages in the family. My father, Kareem, smiled like a snake and welcomed them in with tea. "Of course, officer," he said in perfect English. "We care deeply about our girls." They left without removing anyone. The second the front door closed, that smile melted like acid. In 10 minutes, they tore through the house. Closets, beds, behind picture frames. And then someone remembered the shed. My little cousin Layla, just 10, saw it first. My notebook. Hidden under a loose floorboard in a shoebox labeled "Tools." Pages full of names, laws, hotlines. Everything I'd collected for months. My father lit a match and dropped it onto the pages. He watched it burn like it was me. You are diseased, he said. A sickness. A curse on our blood. Then he turned to the room and shouted, The wedding is at dawn. Before she infects anyone else. That night I didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling, silently repeating every address, every law, every emergency code I'd memorized. At 4 a.m., I slipped out of bed, grabbed the plastic bag I'd hidden behind the toilet tank. Inside were clothes, handwritten copies of the hotline numbers, and $28 I'd stolen from my mom's purse over 3 months. $1 at a time. Then I waited. When the knock finally came, I curled over and groaned. Mama, my stomach hurts. She didn't believe me, of course. Not at first. But in our culture, a sick bride is bad luck. She scowled, gave me 5 minutes, and stormed off. I stumbled to the bathroom, locked the door, and climbed onto the toilet. The window was the size of a loaf of bread. Painted shut. But I'd been working on it for weeks with a stolen butter knife. With one shove, the frame cracked open. I shoved the bag through and followed, my bones scraping against the frame. My hip stuck. I twisted, hissed through my teeth, bit down to keep from screaming as the door behind me started shaking. Fists pounding. Voices yelling. My name echoing through the hall. Then I was through. I fell 6 feet onto wet grass, rolled my ankle, and ran like my life depended on it. Because it did. I tore across backyards, ducked under hedges, tripped over sprinklers. I heard car doors slamming, engines starting. My cousin Mustafa's voice calling. Check the alleys! She can't have gone far. I bled with every step. A shard of glass stabbed into my foot, but I kept running. I ducked into Mrs. Yoon's yard. She wasn't part of the community. That gave me maybe 30 seconds of cover. I reached the main road, heart pounding like a war drum. The bus stop was a block away. And then I saw it, the bus pulling up. I waved wildly. The driver hesitated when she saw me, barefoot, bleeding, dress torn to shreds. I don't have fare, I gasped. She didn't even blink. Sit down, baby. I collapsed into the seat. Behind me, I caught a glimpse of Omar's car screeching into the lot, his face twisted in rage. The woman beside me, older, kind eyes, handed me tissues. Whatever you're running from, she said softly. Don't go back. I nodded. I wouldn't. The courthouse was 12 blocks from the downtown terminal. I walked 3 before my feet gave out. At the clerk's desk, I could barely stand. The woman there took one look at me, bloodied, shaking, wild-eyed, and asked, Do you need help, sweetheart? I whispered the words I'd memorized. They're making me marry him today. I'm 15. That was the moment everything started moving. Fast. Forms, signatures, phone calls. I recited the shelter address I'd memorized, hoping to God they had a bed. They didn't. Next opening was Thursday. It was Sunday. I had 3 days to survive. But then I remembered someone. Ms. Knox, my math teacher, the one with the unlocked drawer. Maybe she hadn't forgotten to lock it at all. 2 hours later, I stood outside Jefferson High. Her car was there. I knew she worked weekends. I found her in room 114, grading quizzes. She looked up, saw me, and the red pen dropped from her hand. My God! She didn't ask questions. Just cleaned the blood from my feet and called CPS. But the system? It hesitated. She's not physically injured. No visible abuse. Just claims. That's when I pulled up my sleeves and showed her the scars. The belt marks. The old burns. She took photos with shaking hands. 5 minutes later, someone was pounding on the school door. I didn't have to look to know who it was. The pounding on the school doors grew louder. Voices, male, familiar, desperate, echoed through the hall. They weren't calling my name. They were saying I was sick. Delusional. That I'd run from home without my medication. They said I had a history of lying. That I was a danger to myself. But I wasn't the only one hearing them. Ms. Knox had already locked the door and drawn the blinds. She whispered, Get in the supply closet. Don't make a sound. I didn't. I crouched between paper boxes, hugging my knees as footsteps circled the hallway. I'm her father, my dad's voice lied. We're just here to take her home. They brought prescription bottles, new, unopened, with my name. They'd thought of everything. But what they hadn't thought of was the past I still carried in my body. The burns on my arms. The belt marks on my back. The weight I'd dropped to delay my period. I showed it all to Ms. Knox. Quietly. As the pounding grew louder, I whispered, I thought this was normal. Until I read your pamphlet. That's when she picked up her phone and dialed 911. And I realized, with a weird twist in my chest, that someone was finally calling for me. The police showed up 15 minutes later. They separated everyone, my father, my uncles, me and Ms. Knox, and asked questions. They were calm. Too calm. My father's lawyer had already arrived. A slick man with cufflinks and a laminated copy of the Constitution. He spoke in warm tones about cultural misunderstanding and troubled teens. About Western influence and fragile traditions. The officers hesitated. Then Ms. Knox did something brilliant. She pulled up my essays, months of them. Disguised as school assignments but filled with coded cries for help. Stories about family cooking rituals that were really forced burns. Chores for uncles that were 10-hour silence drills and lashings for broken dishes. My metaphors had turned into evidence. Still, it wasn't enough. They needed something bigger. Something undeniable. That's when I remembered a name. A girl I hadn't seen in a year. Fatima Habibi. She was said to be dead. First wife of the man I'd been promised to. But I remembered whispers. My cousin Layla swore once she'd seen her working at a hospital in Ohio. I didn't believe it at the time. Now I wanted to. Ms. Knox started calling every shelter and underground contact she knew. And then, like a crack of lightning, the impossible happened. Fatima walked into the courtroom. Alive. I'll never forget her. A slight limp. Scarf tightly wrapped. Her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me, and for the briefest moment, I saw everything. Terror. Regret. Rage. She took the stand and shattered their story like glass. I was his wife. Married at 15. Pregnant by 16. 4 kids by 20. My kidneys started failing. My family faked my death. I escaped with the help of a nurse. They were going to do it to her next. There was silence. Then gasps. My father's lawyer stood up and stuttered something about unreliable witnesses. But the judge waved him off. Fatima pulled out proof, hospital records, photos of her fake grave, and medical statements. But it was her voice that carried most. They treat us like ghosts, she said. Either obedient wives or dead ones. I was crying by then. Silent tears. Hands gripping the bench so tightly I thought I'd leave dents in the wood. That night, as the courthouse emptied out, and the judge granted me permanent protection, I locked myself in the mirror-filled bathroom of my temporary foster placement. And I stared at myself. But all I could see were her eyes, Fatima's eyes. Empty but burning. When I was 16, I remember looking in the mirror at home once and whispering, "This is just how life is. You'll be fine. Don't make trouble." That night, in that new bathroom, I said something different. I won't be fine. I'll be free. And I meant it. It started with whispers. Then came the Photoshop posts. Then videos from the very girls I'd once tried to protect, calling me a liar, a corrupter, a traitor to my own blood. But it wasn't their fault. I knew that. Their eyes were always empty. Their mouths too precise, like they were reading from scripts written by men behind doors they'd never be allowed to close. They were being used. Just like I used to be. The worst was the video from my cousin Margie. I still remembered the way she clutched my arm in the tool shed as I told her how to say, "Please help me, I'm 13, and they're making me marry." Now, in a clean hijab and a stiff smile, she said to the camera, "She made us afraid of our culture. Lied about our parents. We just want her to get help." And then the dolls came. 3 of them. Wrapped in scorched white lace, their plastic faces melted into unreadable expressions. Left inside the burning trunk of an abandoned car, parked 20 feet from my new safe house. Their tiny dresses still smoldering when firefighters arrived. It was a message. We see you. We still own you. The police report called it harassment. I called it psychological warfare. Margaret, the CPS coordinator, showed up within the hour. You can't stay here, she said gently, as officers roamed the yard collecting fingerprints. They've escalated. I wanted to scream. Cry. Break something. Instead, I nodded. Wordless. Tired. I'm done running, I said. If they want a war, let's give them one. We compromised. I'd stay, but with heavy security, retired officers rotating night shifts, new cameras, motion lights, panic buttons in every room. I'd never sleep in the same place 2 nights in a row. That same day, the article finally dropped. The one Ms. Knox helped write. No names, no faces, but it told everything. About the forced marriages. The Notebook Network. The underground support forming in schools and clinics. It exploded online. Shares. Comments. Messages from survivors. Whispers turned into roars. And one DM from a girl in Minnesota. I found your packet. There are 6 of us. We want to run. Can you help? I stared at her message for a full minute, heart beating like a drum. Yes, I wrote back. Tell me everything. That night I didn't sleep. I reread Fatima's letter, the one that came in the mail with her nursing school graduation photo. It ended with, They buried me and I clawed my way out. So can you. And if you do, send a rope back down. So I did. We made more packets. Math problems that were shelter numbers. History homework with legal definitions hidden in the margins. Instructions in invisible ink. Everything girls would need to disappear and survive. Theodora, Ms. Knox, Margaret, we all worked like a war room. But just when it felt like we had a rhythm, the next blow came. They filed criminal charges. Not against my father. Against me. Contributing to the delinquency of minors, the paperwork read. Interfering with parental rights. Corruption. They said I was recruiting children into dangerous situations. For teaching them their rights. Patricia, my lawyer, was livid. It won't stick, but that's not the point. It's a threat. They want to make you so afraid you stop speaking. I wasn't afraid anymore. But I was angry. And that anger had purpose now. Because 2 days later, another girl showed up at our door. 16. Silent. A bruise blooming on her temple. She handed me a notebook. My notebook. The one I'd rewritten from memory. She whispered, It found me. I held it like it was sacred. Because it was. Because they tried to erase me. And all they'd done was multiply me. It ended not with blood, not with a bang, but with a newsletter. My mother's handwriting, scanned and sent to over 300 homes. As of this day, Layla has been officially disowned. She is no longer of our blood. Her name is to be removed from family records. Any contact with her will be considered betrayal. In their world, that was worse than death. In mine, it was freedom. They played their final card, and I was still standing. And it changed everything. Girls who'd been hiding watched that announcement drop, and realized the apocalypse they'd been taught to fear wasn't real. I didn't crumble. I wasn't struck down by God or swallowed by shame. I was alive. 3 more girls filed for emergency protective orders that day. 2 made it to shelters. 1 was caught, but she'd memorized the phone numbers from the math problems. She told the teacher. Her case opened within hours. That same week, I met with the women behind the organizations that had flooded my inbox. Legal advocates. Former survivors. Underground shelter workers. A few teachers who'd already been slipping books into backpacks for years. We named it the Freedom Network. School-safe guides, encrypted group chats, prearranged safe house routes. A full system, hidden in plain sight. We even created a cover, a cultural history club, with meetings hosted in libraries, mosques, even nail salons. Nobody suspected a thing. Until they did. Friday morning, I walked into court for my protective order renewal. This time, it wasn't my family filling the courtroom. It was them. The girls. The women. The teachers. The nurse who first cleaned the glass from my feet. The security guard from Jefferson High. Even Fatima, who drove 3 hours just to sit behind me. Patricia smiled. They wanted to erase you. Instead, you multiplied. My father's lawyer tried one final Hail Mary. She's been disowned. She's no longer under threat. But the judge shut him down like a closing book. Disownment does not erase trauma, threats, or crimes. The order stands. Permanently. Outside the courthouse, a journalist waited, not the one who broke my story, but another. And another. The cameras rolled, but I didn't speak. Instead, Fatima and I stood side by side and hugged. Two girls who were supposed to be buried. Still breathing. Still fighting. Still free. The next day, the Freedom Network had its first real meeting. 15 women. A plan. We assigned safe houses, drop locations, packet couriers. One woman, a former accountant, handled encrypted records. Ms. Knox trained volunteers to spot girls in distress using just cafeteria seating charts and class participation patterns. That night, my burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. Shaking voice. I found your notebook. Can you help me? I said what I always say now. Yes. Tell me everything. But that wasn't the end. Sunday morning, news broke of a girl named Samira, 16, promised to a man overseas, rescued at the courthouse during a fake passport appointment. She dropped to the floor and screamed of stomach pain, just like I had. She grabbed a guard, whispered 3 words. They're marrying me. She'd memorized the script. Used it perfectly. As she was taken into protective custody, she looked up and saw me across the parking lot. Our eyes met. One word passed between us, silent but understood, run. That night, someone lit a fire again. This time, not a car. Just a trash can at a gas station nearby. Inside it, they left burned notebook pages and a note. Stop this or you're next. But it was too late. The idea had already spread. By Monday, CPS confirmed 12 girls in 3 states had filed emergency petitions using our guides. On Tuesday, a school nurse in Texas emailed saying she'd found one of our packets taped inside a locker. By Wednesday, we weren't just fighting back. We were winning. And by Friday? Friday we got our first international message. A girl from the UK. She ended her DM with a shaky heart emoji and 3 words. Is it possible? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. It already is.